We ended up, we had twice as many applications in the following month than we had ever seen in any month that was ever tracked. And then that fiscal year, we ended up with a 38% increase in enrollment for our detachment. So.
Hey everyone, welcome to Big Jib Draw, the podcast that's here to help young professionals navigate the marine industry with clarity and confidence, answering your questions as authentically and openly as possible.
That's right. Transitioning from school to industry can feel overwhelming, but you're not alone. Think of us as your friendly neighborhood guides. We've been there and we're here to help.
Our podcast is proudly sponsored by the SNAMI Canadian Atlantic Section and hosted by me, Danielle.
And me, Pranay.
Let's get into it.
Welcome, everyone, to the 5th episode of the 2nd season of Big Jib Draw. As always, I'm your host, Pranay Chakraborty, with my co-host, Danielle Pranay. And today, we are joined by a very special guest. Mr. Rory Buchanan is a veteran with 20 years of distinguished service in the Royal Canadian Navy. Hiring in 2023 as the Marine Mechanical Manager on board the HMCS Montreal, Rory is a marine systems guy at heart. Hailing from the small town of Sunridge, Ontario, he joined the RCN at the young age of 21. Where being part of the Hurricane Katrina Relief Force in 2005 was one of his very first assignments in what would become a long and multifaceted career. He bid his active service goodbye after serving in the HMCS Montreal during its deployment to the Indo-Pacific in 2023. Home came calling, and Rory joined the Naval Engineering Test Establishment, or NETE, to work on the Canadian Surface Combatant Program's Integrated Test Team under the auspices of the Department of National Defense. After serving diligently with NETE for a year and a half, Rory officially retired and joined Fleetway Incorporated's Marine Technical Service Team as a Senior Marine Mechanical Technologist, supporting the Royal Canadian Navy's Halifax Class Design Agent Group. Rory is one of those select few professionals who have seen both sides of the shipbuilding coin, from active and dedicated service in the Navy to doing the same in private industry. It is an absolute pleasure to have him on the podcast with us today. Welcome, Rory, and good morning.
Yes, good morning, Rory.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, both Pranay and Danielle. It's a pleasure to take a few minutes to discuss some things with you.
Yeah, for sure. We're really looking forward to hearing your story. Yeah, I know the story of from sea to shore. I'm so fascinated by that, and I think a lot of our listeners are going to be really fascinated by it as well. So thank you.
Absolutely. You're welcome. So seeing how we've already gotten on the jumping off pod, first things first, Rory, give us a little peek into your background. How does a boy growing up in Sunridge, Ontario, on the banks of the Parry Sound, end up in the Navy? What were those early days like?
Unique question for sure. As a result of not knowing we even had a Navy until I enrolled, so that's definitely unique for sure. So yeah, I grew up more or less as a farm boy in small town Sunridge. Mm-hmm. So our family lived definitely on the outskirts of Sunridge, but North Bay. If anyone knows where North Bay is, we were approximately 80 kilometers south of North Bay. So North Bay was our getting out to the city, so to speak, kind of place, but. Born and raised there. Did the college bit after high school, and learned that wasn't the best thing for me. So I wanted to become a police officer.
Oh, wow.
So at 21 years old, it was really hard to get on any department. I wanted the Ontario Provincial Police specifically. Mm. So a friend of mine suggested, well, why don't you join the military and get some training and get paid while you're doing it. Of course, through the evolution of time, you'll mature a little bit and thus hopefully make you a good candidate for the OPP. When I went to the recruiting office, I actually sought out different occupations than what I ended up with. Wanting police options, I tried for military police, but at the time you needed a 2-year police foundations program to be accepted, which of course I didn't have because, as I said, I attempted college, not even in a program remotely close to policing, but regardless, I was unsuccessful with that bid.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a common story, actually, like people you go to, because you're so young, right? You go and you try something,
Absolutely.
You're like, okay, let's give this a try. And then I'm like, yeah, this is not for me.
Yeah, and I even, from Ontario back then, you had grade 13 or Ontario academic credits,
right?
Which I had a stab at a couple, but my academic standing was certainly not good enough for university. So that wasn't even an option. So where I had, I think it was grade 10, maybe.
Okay.
I started with construction in high school.
Right.
So carpentry and some electrical, some drafting and stuff like that. And then I ended up competing in the carpentry aspect, both at Ontario Skills Competition and went to nationals and all that sort of stuff.
Neat. Okay.
Yeah. So when I got to the college age, it just seemed like a good fit. My goal was to become a general contractor. So I wanted the program I took was a historical masonry program. Which at 18, 19 years old, I didn't appreciate the same way I would now in terms of the academia and the history involved. So that was my goal, to do that and then follow up with timber framing. And that was my goal, was to become a general contractor and like timber frame homes.
Right. Okay.
And then curveball after curveball, and the policing just seemed like a better option. And I just thought to myself, I enjoy carpentry too much to do the rest of my life.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
It's a good, strong hobby, but I didn't want more than that. I didn't want to hate it at some point in time.
Yeah.
So.
No, fair enough. So how exactly then from there did you end up in the Navy?
So at the recruiting office, with the military police option not being available, second option, I thought, well, carpentry is my background. I'll try for that. So when I was going through the enrollment process was 2003, which I would say Afghanistan was well on its way to its peak. So the soldiers that were needing remuster occupations out of the Army, infantry, artillery trades, construction technician was considered a remuster trade. So it wasn't open for somebody coming off the street, along with hull technician in the Navy. And the recruiter I had specifically was an electrician in the Navy, and I recruited out of North Bay. Again, not knowing anything about the Navy, he said, "Do you know anything about the Navy?" My response, quite limited. To So I'm not going to say he convinced me, but he, in a way, I guess he did. He kind of sold the option in terms of like sailing the world and stuff like that. And I did sail a lot of the world, so that's how I ended up with marine engineer. Was the trade at the beginning, marine engineer mechanic, and then through the evolution of the trade, marine engineer technician, artificer, and then now its official title is marine technician in the Navy. So that's how it all kind of transpired.
Yeah. So myself and Pranay, obviously, we run headfirst into office jobs straight out of school. Very different experience from you sailing around the globe at 21, 22 years old. So you kind of already touched a little bit on your initial thoughts of the Navy or what your perceptions were. But what was the picture that you had in your mind, and how did it differ from what you actually experienced once you got out there?
So, original picture, there really wasn't one, because I didn't know it existed. But once I did enroll, it was kind of daunting. I will say, when I went to basic training, so I had never left the province of Ontario, and really I don't think ever had been any further than like a 3-hour drive away from home. So I was pretty green to the whole travel and all that stuff. But no, when I went to Saint Jean, Quebec is where I did my basic training.
Okay.
So when I went there, I'm almost sure, when I say almost sure, I'm like 98% sure I cried my first night, because it was just, it was, I don't want to say it was like a foreign land, but when you cross that provincial border, it's something you're not used to.
Yeah.
It was quite intimidating. So when I finally left Esquimalt, I went to Esquimalt, once I completed basic training, and that's where I did my initial trade training. So again, never been on a boat at this point in time until I was a year to the day, pretty much, from being able to go to sea. So then I was posted to my first unit, HMCS Toronto. So being from Ontario, it was kind of cool to be posted to HMCS Toronto.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Nice, close to home. Yeah.
Did the Great Lakes Regional Deployment that following summer. But a month and a half before Hurricane Katrina relief. So going up the Great Lakes, and some of my friends and family were able to see the office, as I coined it quite often. But I still remember my first time going to sea and looking around, and I don't know how to swim, right? So it was kind of what is going on, but it was so breathtaking to look around and not see a stitch of land anywhere.
Right.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
But it was so cool, and so that another thing you don't know until you actually go on a boat is whether you're going to be seasick or not. There's a large percentage of people that actually join the Navy end up seasick. Some kind of fight through it because there's varying levels of seasickness. Some fight through it, and some they just can't, and they're forced to either release, remuster, what have you.
Wow. Yeah.
So I was lucky enough. I never got seasick.
Nice.
In the 20 years, I was.
Gosh, that is lucky because I've been
Yes.
seasick
Oh, yeah.
so many times.
Yeah,
I get seasick. Yeah.
Yeah, Rory, you gotta clap react in the chat.
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah. Impressive.
Yeah, and you're going into the dark until you actually do it. You have no idea.
That's right.
So it was daunting, but breathtaking and surreal all at the same time. And I ended up by the time my career was done. So they quantify there's a certain thing on your naval uniform they call the SSI or Sea Service Insignia, and it's quantified by days at sea, and it's minimum 8 hours on the ocean surface, or I should say, if you're a submariner, subsurface, but away from land effectively.
Gotcha.
So I ended up with over 3 years, just on the ocean.
Wow.
So, and I remember this probably something completely off topic, and I just
Oh no, we love
I
it.
think it's a cool story, and it's a cool story, and I tell it all the time. So I don't know if you guys were ever aware of a show on, I believe it was CTV, might have been CBC. Regardless, it was Street Sense.
Okay.
And Jonathan Torrance was the Halifax reporter. And I remember it used to be on Saturday morning, and I remember watching it one time, and Jonathan Torrance was on the waterfront, and the ocean was in the background. Or just Halifax Harbor, but effectively the ocean. And I remember thinking, I'd like to see the ocean sometime before I die. And turns out I've sailed on all oceans since then. So
That's incredible.
yeah.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible. So looking back now on all of your time, all these 3 full years on the ocean, all of the experiences you just mentioned, what experiences do you think prepared you the most for your current role as a senior marine mechanical technologist?
So experience. So it's going to stem from the initial training in whatever level you're at. So for the mechanical manager, or now it's called, they used to be qualification levels.
Gotcha, okay.
In the military. Now they're called RQ, so required qualification at a certain level, so petty officer first class. So that's the start of the experience. So just kind of telling you where to look for different things, how to look, so on and so forth. I mean, you're always training throughout your career, but that's that's the big one that kind of gets you over the hump that makes you substantive in that position. So once you obtain the qualification and then obtain the rank associated with that, and then get the sea time. So to relate it to shipbuilding, as great as the sea time is and was, it's the time ashore that actually kind of prepares you more. Because in the technical occupations, when you go on short work periods or extended or docking work periods, and you're liaising with the repair facilities, whether it's Cape Scott for Fleet Maintenance Facility Cape Scott, which is a D&D facility, or there's ISI, Irving shipyards, when they're going through extended or docking work periods. You liaise with them, and that's where it kind of prepares you for the life after that is now, so to speak.
Yep. Very cool. I know. Well, I guess I kind of thought too, once upon a time, I actually did an overnight stay on the Captain Molly Cool. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that ship. I believe that it's docked here in Newfoundland, honestly. But I spent an overnight and we 3D scanned that vessel. And I remember just like analyzing, I guess. So coming from a design perspective, I didn't have much experience on a ship, right? So even just getting to walk around the ship, look at how things were done, and then kind of think, oh, in a design world, how would I take that experience on the ship? How could I take that back and improve my designs? So I even see like aspects like that, like being just that time on a vessel too, right? It's just so valuable because so many designers don't have that experience actually seeing the vessels or being in the shipyards, right? It's all tied to your desk and your office. So I always find that so fascinating. I'm sure you picked up so many different experiences while transitioning as well.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool.
If I can sort of add to your anecdote a little bit, Danielle, from a small thing from my side. So during my very last work term that I did with the Coast Guard, I was one of the only people at the office because it was still like 2021, there was COVID mandates and whatnot. And my manager was like, "You've done a fair bit of design work. Do you want to go do some small surveys on the ships or like go and take part?" Like they had and then they had a team coming from Coast Guard Ottawa that was doing 3D. They were like, "Do you want to go and do that, help with that task as well?" And I was like, "Does a tiger use the restroom in a tropical jungle? Of course I'm going to go."
Yes.
And as to honestly, just a small aside, guys, and I swear we're going to move on to the next question. But like, as like I stepped on the boat and I got to do those things, and I'm like, no, boats is that this is going to be my life now. I love this.
Yeah.
I love this. Like
it's monumental.
Couldn't pay me to do anything else. Well,
Yeah.
if they paid high enough, but like, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I love it.
So now we've sort of touched on the part of your journey, Rory, where you went from small town to the Navy. Let's kind of now transition into your life after uniform and, you know, the sort of insight that you have gotten for the industry since then. So you've mentioned previously that you're a marine systems guy at heart. And today you are doing obsolescence management for the Halifax Class project. How different, like this transition, was it something that you encountered right away when you started your time at NEEDY, like from active service to going to the office with NEEDY, or did it come like a little later as the time went on?
So I'm going to assume that you're talking about work tempo itself.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you notice that right away. Because as a service member, and I'll talk obviously specifically about the Navy, I can't elaborate too much on the Air Force or Army, as I was never in that, but it's significant. When you're posted to a seagoing vessel in the Navy, whatever its schedule is your schedule. For instance, throughout my time, we'll take the Cyclone helicopters. So when we were doing acceptance trials, sea acceptance trials for the Cyclone helicopters, it was called SHOAL. It was an acronym. Couldn't tell you what it stands for now, but that was my time with HMCS Halifax. So that schedule, which is weird, my schedule is the ship schedule, and in that specific case, the ship schedule is the helicopter schedule.
Right.
So as we hadn't accepted it fully, it was Skorsky, a Texas-based firm. Their schedule was the one that was promulgating our schedule. So you really can't base much of a personal life off that because
that's right.
You know, there was a rough schedule. And very rough schedule where you were out for 5 days, in for 2, out for 5 days, in for 2. Okay. Let's say they used to hit these D&Es, so do not exceed on whatever piece of equipment they were trialing at that specific point in time. So they hit a D&E. So Skorsky will say, just throw a number at it, they were billed $1 million a day, okay, to have the ship and its crew out doing these trials. So if you hit a D&E and could not, further the test, you're going to commit.
Right. And
then they would contact Texas and go over the information and see what they needed to do from there. So it could be 2 or 3 days waiting for information and feedback from Texas. So now that 5 and 2 is now 3 and maybe 4, maybe 5, maybe 2. So it was a very hectic schedule. So you go from that to an industry firm such as NEEDY and then into current employment. They're pretty set in stone. So it's a 5-day work week, 8 hours a day. Boom, done. That 8 hours a day in the military usually didn't exist. When you were out at sea, most everyone had a 12-hour workday, we'll call it, throughout various hours of the day. Because it's 24/7 operation when you're out to sea. So you kind of have to. Everyone has to pull their weight. Yeah. So and then not to mention in that cycle with the military, you're up tempo. So I mean, if you're at a high readiness vessel and you're ready duty ship, you could be okay. Well, I'm going home this weekend, going to have a few drinks or whatever. And then all of a sudden there's a fishing trawler and SeaJock has deemed it your ship is a ready-duty ship and you're responding. So fishing trawler sends a distress call, 4 hours. You got to be back on the ship.
Wow. Okay.
And gone. So yeah, to live in that mindset to now. So it took probably a year and a half to psychologically adapt, so to speak. And it's different for sure.
For sure.
Welcome at the same time.
Yeah. That was honestly going to be my next question. For like, I know some people actually really like those types of schedules, whereas other people, I mean, for me, I value work-life balance, but even then you kind of think about in the shipbuilding world, people would still argue that it's pretty high demand. Like if there's a deadline, you might be expected to work overtime compared to like other careers, right? So hearing your experience on sea versus then still being in a design office, like I don't know if there are many expectations for you with overtime and things like that, but so you did notice a big transition, I guess, like you appreciated it.
Yeah, for sure. So overtime in the military, there is no overtime. You're salary paid, and if it's 18 hours a day, you're working 18 hours. I mean, there was a couple stints, let's say, so back in my technician days, a diesel generator would go down. And I remember one stint specifically, I was up for 32 hours, trying to get this generator back together. And that's just what you do.
Yeah. Did you find it hard then, kind of like if you were sleep deprived? I'm just curious.
So it's kind of funny. I mean, it's all going to depend on who the individual is. I like work. I like to keep busy. So you just have your mind on the mission. So there is certainly a point like 32 hours. So I think it was probably like hour 26 where you're a zombie and you're like, but you're just telling everyone to back off. You're going to get this finished. And then you just kind of barely function, but function enough.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I guess you need to get that thing done. Once you're done, you can rest. So, because I know I'm the same way even in my home life. Like if I have my mind on a problem or my mind on a thing, I'm not resting till that's done. Then I can move on and have my sleep or my rest after. So I get that too. So now that you're settled on supporting the fleet from the design side, how do you find that perspective, I guess now we're actually digging into like the specific work that you're doing. How does that perspective differ from being on board the ship? How does your mind, I guess, the way that you think about these problems change and shift?
So being from the front end as a sailor, and you experience the logistical support. So I'm going to talk specifically about the obsolescence management as it is now. So being on the receiving end of the logistical chain, perhaps not having the right amount of things in the supply chain in order to get the work done.
Sure.
You understand how important this work is. It's slower work, but it's good and it still needs to be done. But it's the kind of work that the rest of the team, and when I say the rest of the team, like AD and Matt, needs to, they're busy doing other things. And this, especially the Halifax Class, I'll talk specifically about that, where they're already beyond life expectancy. And everyone that's involved in the Halifax Class ships is just trying to keep them going for another approximately 20 years. So with that, the portfolios or job objectives increase.
Right.
And, the 1, 2, 5, 10 people, whatever it was that were required before, now that job has increased almost exponentially. So you need more people.
Right.
And that's where jobs like this really help out. And being, the proverbial tip of the spear before, this is really, it gives you that insight or perspective to appreciate what you're doing and understand and hopefully desire to get it done as quick as you can.
That's so cool. I'm so impressed that you've been able to see both sides, all sides of it. That's I feel like a lot of designers, at least for myself, like that's what any opportunity I get to see a ship in real life, I'm like so excited. So that's
absolutely awesome. So, kind of speaking more to the industry now, Rory, since we're sort of at the deep end of the industry side of things, there is one term that, it keeps coming up in the different conversations that we have with stakeholders, which is the learning curve. Now, from your perspective, obviously now we are part of the big national shipbuilding strategy where different shipbuilders across Canada are building Canada's future fleet, essentially. So from your perspective, what has the learning curve been like for the shipbuilding strategy so far? Because, for almost 35 years, we in Canada have not built warships at a massive scale. And now we're planning on cranking cranking the ships out as fast and as efficiently as we can. So how have you seen the readiness from sort of the government and industry side in this regard, if you were to speak on that?
Yeah, that's definitely a deep question, and we'll try to tiptoe it around around it as delicately as we can. From my perspective, it's we have a lot of learning to do. Mm-hmm. The good thing about it is we're doing it. And that's how the learning is done. So the errors and the successes, you learn from both. That being said, though, 30 plus years, the last time we designed ships were the CPFs in the 80s. So another gap there is technology. So you look at control systems on the Halifax Class ships, they're predominantly pneumatically controlled devices, and that's part of the obsolescence management actually I'm involved in, is that technology has been obsolete for 15 plus years because they went electronic. I mean, and it makes sense. It's less invasive. It's smaller, easier to replace one-offs. I mean, from the maintenance side of the house. So it's just the downside of it now is procurement. And the federal government procurement pertaining to that, specifically to software, because software is upgrading faster than we can keep up with. So our procurement process it's good in the way that there's a lot of oversight, but because of the oversight, it adds to the delay. And we exactly. It's like a dog catching its tail in the circle. It never catches it. So by the time you have, we'll say, for example, Rev 5 approved, and we're good with the massive procurement of Rev 5, they're on to Rev 26.
Yeah.
We're continually behind the 8 ball in that regard. Hardware doesn't really change a whole lot, but the software, that's where you're really gonna find yourself behind for sure.
Absolutely.
No, for sure. Thank you so much for that answer. I know I find even keeping up with technology, again, like I work for a software company, so I see how frequently we release our releases, and I see how behind a lot of organizations are, like using releases from still 2018, really old releases of software, and we've made so many positive changes since then, but it is such a big overhaul for a lot of these organizations to implement these updates. So it's not always that easy, right? You really have to do that risk analysis, cost assessment, and see if it's worth your time. And you're already, like you said, you're already obsolete using something from a couple months ago nowadays. That's just the way it is. It's so hard to keep up with, man.
And then the added complexity of utilizing taxpayers' money.
Yes.
That's the other hurdle.
Yeah, no, I completely get that. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that it's not mentioned specifically in your bio, but what our listeners might really like to know is that you actually worked as a recruiter for the Navy for around 3.5 years, which is super interesting. What was that like? And what did that role teach you about how people make career decisions?
Yeah, so that was a good time. My wife maybe doesn't share the same compassion I did. We ended up moving to Sudbury, Ontario.
Okay.
Accompanied with that, she had to change career paths for a few years. But she was ever so patient throughout the process. But for the recruiting aspect, it was very good insight.
Yeah.
Because you get to, in the military, you have a lot of people that would curse recruiters because, they found they didn't make the right career path or whatever. And, for instance, one tagline I always heard, but I've never heard people utilize, and that's how they were attracted. Do you like camping? And this is, well, we have an occupation for you, infantry. And it's like, I've never actually, that's not a tagline that's utilized in recruiting training. I could tell you that because nobody ever told me to say that.
Yeah.
So if that was actually utilized, sure, maybe. But I think a lot of people's perspectives are usually self-driven. So they kind of manipulate what actually happened to kind of favor their end result. But at any rate, no, I enjoyed it. I like to think I was the honest broker. I tried to tell them from my perspective, the goods, the bads. Because nothing is ever perfect. And certainly the Canadian Armed Forces is no exception to the rule. So you kind of tell your down days or whatever, but there were some upsides too. I mean, like traveling the world was I come from a town of 1,000 people, and I got paid to travel. So for instance, the last deployment on the Montreal, I went around, circumnavigated Australia. So 3 different
Very
ports
cool,
in Australia.
Yeah.
Started off in the Med Sea because we went through the Suez Canal. The deployment after us for HMCS Montreal, they actually circumnavigated the globe. So there are some cool milestones if you like that sort of stuff. But then there's the educational perspective of it for people that may sign on for ROTP or regular officer training plan and go to RMC in Kingston or Civilian University for ROTP. So there's some good things there. You get a full 4-year university degree from that, and if you want to extend and achieve your master's, there's options like that.
Lots of opportunity, yeah.
But there's the downside. If you like your home of 1,000 people, it's probably not for you. And it's not that I didn't like my home. There was limited opportunity for a long-term career. So on top of the police thing, it just kind of transpired afterwards. And I ended up staying in after the 3 years. But back to the recruiting, it was nice helping people get to where they wanted to be. It's nice having that feeling. And then for those that maybe are on the fence, not that I want to push them to make that decision and pad my numbers. That's not it at all. It's just, they're not quite there yet. Then you just kind of help them along. And then there's the other side. A lot of people think as soon as you sign up, you're gone. Next day you're packing your bags, and it's a fairly lengthy process from the point of enrollment the point of application to enrollment. So helping them understand the whole process and what's happening behind the scenes, just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. So yeah,
I really appreciate one thing that I really appreciate is your transparency. I think that's because you also mentioned another point on like padding your numbers. So I always think about those things, right? Like it almost feels like a bit of a conflict of interest because you want to be honest to the people. You don't want people getting in there and then wanting to like drop out immediately. But you also, I guess, as a recruiter, have certain expectations placed on you to get a number of people to join or enroll. So I guess that's something I've thought about.
I will clear the air on that. There actually isn't a quota you have to achieve. No, there isn't. I was just good. Joking about that, but there isn't a quota you have to achieve. Certainly there's analytics that are tracked annually, and if you don't achieve the previous number, for instance, it's not like you're going to get fired or anything of that nature. So one thing, I was senior recruiter in the detachment for 2.5 of my 3.5 years. So one of the responsibilities is attractions with that. So this just kind of leans into the recruiting numbers. And again, it's not a quota, but so it was my job to kind of go out. It was all the recruiter's job, but kind of fell on me more so of going to key events and stuff like that. So I happened to find one. It's kind of funny. I was made fun of for about 1.5 years before this event, just because of the nature of what the event was. But in hindsight, it turned out to be it was the best event that our detachment went to. And it was big enough I had to reach beyond our detachment. So it went regional with, because Sudbury kind of falls under the Ottawa region. So Ottawa, Kingston, and Sudbury would kind of handle that event, attending it and attracting and stuff like that. So you have the CF-18 cockpit demo. You had the Skyhawks there. So the acrobatic parachute team for the Canadian Air Forces. So it turned out to be a rather large event. So about a month later, after the event, the person that tracks the analytics for the Ottawa region, he contacted us and said, have you guys done anything different with attractions, or was that specific event kind of the only one? And we said, well, that was really the only one that was out of the ordinary, because we ended up, we had twice as many applications in the following month than we had ever seen in any month that was ever tracked. And then that fiscal year, we ended up with a 38% increase in enrollment for our detachment. So,
that's really cool.
if you find the right ones, it It will
Yep.
it will happen for you, and not I didn't get a bonus or anything for
No.
having those numbers, but
Yeah, we're just
no,
clearing the air
it felt
here.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it felt good, and that's all you pretty much get out of it is a little bit of source of pride.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
So, sort of keeping in with the spirit of not sugarcoating stuff, obviously there is, I was going to say an open secret, but it's not an open secret because it's been reported widely that there is a manpower issue that the Canadian Armed Forces at large and the Navy in specific, the RCN in specific, is experiencing. So I just wanted to ask that with your recruiting background and your industry experience, according to your sort of perspective, moving ahead in time, how do we tackle the Navy's manpower challenge as we build the next generation of ships?
There's quite a few different, and these are merely just personal opinions of avenues we could take. So I don't know, I don't want to say conscription, but like the 2-year mandatory years of service that other countries have taken on. I really think it's good to kind of broach that because in my years in the military, there's a lot of members of the Canadian population that don't really know there's a forces at all. Less so for the Navy, and I'm speaking from experience here because I come from a town of 1,000 people in central Ontario. And sure, well, a lot of them know there's a Navy. Not a lot of them do. Getting the message out there, that's one thing I was trying to do when I was in recruiting. So, for instance, North Bay has on Canadian Armed Forces Day, North Bay is an air base. Used to be an active airstrip, not anymore, but you have NORAD there. So every Canadian Armed Forces Day, they have the snowbirds. They're slated for there. The Skyhawks are usually there, but it's a heavy emphasis on Air Force. So what I was trying to do, and unfortunately COVID really pumped the brakes on that one, was I was trying to really create naval exposure. So I was trying to get some ribs out, so just small boats, because where they had the Canadian Air Force Day in North Bay was right on the coast of Lake Nipissing, which is a rather large lake, and it would have facilitated that quite easily. So I just want a little more naval exposure just to let people know that, hey, this uniform is not a security guard for a mall, which I have been mistook for before as that. So it was really what I used to call the relish. So the Army CAD pad. Everyone knows what that is. Everyone. Most people, even when the Air Force wear it, most people think it's still the Army. So they don't really know the differential, but they still know there's an Air Force. The Navy, we have the largest or second largest, depending what coastline you use, coastline in the world. Yeah. And we have, at the end of the Second World War, we were the third largest Navy in the world. Yeah. We are not now, not even close. So yeah, I really like that idea. And it also pads, Danielle, if you remember earlier in the conversation, you had referenced age and leaving high school. If you have that 2-year service, it gives you a couple more years of maturity, maybe to see, like, I'm not saying you have to maintain that career afterwards, but it gives you money the whole time. Some people may use that as a leap into education. So there's a couple different avenues, because 17 now, deciding what you're going to do the rest of your life, let's face it, the vast majority of us don't have a clue. And I even look at medical professionals, the amount of years you have to invest to become a licensed medical practitioner. It's, even starting at 17, you're probably 28 by the time you're even licensed to go. And
no, absolutely.
And that's a huge investment.
Yeah.
To not even know if that's what you want.
Yeah, I know.
Precisely.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Even listening to your answer here, we did an episode. Our last episode was with Captain Chris Strage, and he was talking about the Marine Institute programs and solving, like, I guess, the shipbuilding problems. And there's a manpower shortage there as well, right? And the number one problem you're mentioning, he mentioned, we all notice, is awareness, right? Especially in these rural communities or in areas where people could really benefit from these types of experiences and guided learning and somebody to really help them figure out what it is. Okay, how do I do this? Like, because when I even think about the military in general, I mean, aside from, okay, I'd start by going to the military website. Like, I feel like you just don't really know what you're getting yourself into. You don't necessarily know the pathway to take. Like you said, there's so many different branches, so many different aspects. So navigating it all is overwhelming right off the bat, right? Do I even want to try this? I'm just gonna, like, we need to do things to make it more accessible and to help children realize, not even children, I'm saying children, they're adults by the time they join.
Yeah, there's very little face value. If you go back to the 2011-2013 timeframe, that's when CFRG, or Canadian Forces Recruiting Group, they're headquartered out of Borden. That's when they decided to shut down a lot of the satellite smaller detachments because they were going to heavily utilize the internet as the recruiting tool. Much cheaper, makes sense. But like you said, nobody's getting the answers. The website, as good as it is, it doesn't have all the answers. So having the ability to talk to somebody one-on-one, it's very hard to do. And not to mention, so your larger centers. So, I mean, in Sudbury, we were a detachment. We were in the hub of the North, though, Sudbury. So 165,000 people there may have had access to us, but my entire area of responsibility had a little over 1 million people, which was probably 3/4 of Northern Ontario. So how many had the accessibility of face-to-face?
Yeah.
Not very many.
That's right. Big problem there for sure. My next question for you would be, after all this discussion, for young people trying to figure out their direction, what would you say to someone considering the Navy, the number one thing, and also where would you recommend they go for additional information? I guess maybe the website, but from your perspective, what would be your first step in actioning that?
For sure. So the website, and I mean, I could give it to you off the top of my head because it's that easy to remember, but I don't want to make it sound like a recruiting plug either, because that's not what this is.
Yeah, no. We will just emphasize, this is not a recruiter plug.
This is not a recruiter exactly. But yeah, if you wanted more information, see, this is the thing. Face-to-face would be the way to go, and that's my recommendation. But trying to obtain that is very difficult. So I believe they have abilities of talking, via the same way we are now, just online. But where I think you would probably get the most honest information, and not that recruiters aren't honest, it's just that it's designed. Recruiting by nature is designed not to lie to people, but just tell half the truth. Just tell the good side, and that's marketing with anything in this world. That's what it is. So if you had the ability of knowing people that served, to me, that's the best source of information. I shouldn't say living through their experiences, but listening to their experiences and see what they would do different if you wanted to pursue it. But I wouldn't go to the recruiters until the point at which you were going to apply, if you were going to apply.
Right.
And that's just the website. But for the information, active or former serving members.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. So after all the insight that you have given us today, Rory, we're sort of winding down near the end of our conversation right now. So I want to ask you, before we give you the rest of your day back, which is that when you look at where Canada's Navy and the shipbuilding industry are headed, what are your hopes and expectations for the future? Because again, this is another question that gets thrown at veterans a lot, thrown at active service members a lot. So we just want to get your insight on this.
Yeah, so absolutely. At the end of the day, I spent 20 years in the Navy. The hope is to just get to the point where we have reliable equipment that the service members can utilize effectively on the domestic and international scale. Not to say that the equipment we have now isn't good, but it's dated. It's worn out. We need new stuff. So that's the hope and the desire, is that whatever service person you send out in the morning, you hope they come back in the evening. And that's all it is.
No, for sure. Well said. Well put. Thank you so much, Rory.
And thank you very much. This is another aspect that we sort of want to touch on, because, we have young professionals, we have students listening in, and they also need to know that there are options out there. It's not just the civilian industry. There's also a military aspect to this industry. And even within that military aspect, there is an aspect of active service, or there is another path where you go around supporting said active service. So yeah, thank you again.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, and give me a few minutes to tell it from my side of the ship, I guess, so to speak. So
I love that. Thanks so much. See you next time.
Thank you very much. See you next time.
Thanks.